On May 13, 1981, exactly 64 years after the first apparition of Mary to 3 shepherd children, a small open-air Jeep rode into St. Peter's Square. In it was Pope John Paul II, who warmly greeted the pilgrims who had gathered in the square. Suddenly, a man in the crowd raised a pistol and fired 4 shots at the Pope. One hit his right hand and another his arm. The other 2 struck him in his abdomen, ricocheting inside of him, shredding intestines and piercing his colon, which caused massive internal bleeding. And while the doctors acted quickly, it wasn't enough. The loss of blood was too great. So at 5:45 p.m., after several attempts to revive him, Pope John Paul II, the great Pope of Mercy, was pronounced dead. The 3rd secret of Our Lady of Fatima had come true. Of course, thankfully the Pope did not die that day. But why not? After all, the 3rd secret of Our Lady of Fatima had basically said that the Pope would be shot and killed. So why did he survive? Well, commenting on the 3rd secret, Cardinal Ratzinger, the future Pope Benedict XVI, he shed some light on the situation. He said, "The future is not in fact unchangeably set, and the image which the Fatima children saw is in no way a film preview of a future in which nothing can be changed. Indeed, the whole point of the vision is to bring freedom onto the scene and to steer freedom in a positive direction. The purpose of the vision is not to show a film of an irrevocably fixed future. Its meaning is exactly the opposite. It is meant to mobilize the forces of change in the right direction." So put differently, paying attention to the Fatima message is not like going to a psychic or a palm reader. And by the way, please stay away from them. Anyway, such people make it seem as if what they say will absolutely happen. But that denies us the power of human freedom, which is one of the greatest gifts that God has given us in creating us. And with that gift of freedom, we can turn to God in prayer. And by His grace, we can move mountains and even change the course of history. So yes, in the Fatima vision of 1917, the Pope was shot and killed. But it didn't turn out that way in reality. The Pope's life was spared that May 13, 1981, and he did not die that day, though from all accounts he should have. It seemed then that something had happened to alter the otherwise lethal attack. All right, so what happened? Well, it has to do with the power of prayer. You see, when people pray to God with a living faith, it has power. Again, it can change the course of history, and it did change history. John Paul's life was spared at a time he should have died. And I believe that gift of grace came from all the rosaries, penances, and First Saturday devotions inspired by Our Lady of Fatima. And with that grace, Our Lady took action. And that seems to be John Paul II's opinion too. In fact, regarding the shooting, he's quoted as saying, "One hand fired and another guided the bullet." And more specifically, he believed that the guiding hand that spared his life was that of Our Lady of Fatima. Now at the time, John Paul hadn't yet made the connection with Our Lady of Fatima. But later, while in the hospital recovering from the shooting, he reflected on the date, May 13th. Suddenly he remembered it was the anniversary of the first apparition of Our Lady of Fatima. So with that in mind, he asked that the document containing the 3rd secret, which he had never read, be brought to him. Well, his personal secretary records the Pope's reaction after he read the document.
"When he was finished, all his remaining doubts were gone. In Sister Lucia's vision, he recognized his own destiny. He became convinced that his life had been saved, no, given back to him anew, thanks to Our Lady's intervention and protection. It's true, of course, that the bishop dressed in white is killed in Sister Lucia's vision, whereas John Paul II escaped an almost certain death. So, couldn't that have been the real point of the vision? Couldn't it have been trying to tell us that the paths of history, of human existence, are not necessarily fixed in advance, and that there is a providence, a motherly hand, which can intervene and cause a shooter who is certain of hitting his target to miss? One hand shot and another guided the bullet, was how the Holy Father put it.
Now, the Pope's conviction that his life had been given back to him by Our Lady of Fatima only deepened when he later met with and forgave the man who shot him. On that occasion, his would-be assassin spoke words that had a profound effect on the Pope. He said to the Holy Father, "I know I was aiming right. I know that that bullet was a killer. So why aren't you dead?" Well, according to Cardinal Jewish, John Paul carried those words around with him for years, pondering them over and over again. Of course, such pondering nourished John Paul's feeling of gratitude to Our Lady. I mean, it was crystal clear to him that she had spared his life. Okay, but why did she do it? Again, as I mentioned earlier, part of the reason surely had to do with all the prayers and sacrifices of those who had been inspired by the message of Our Lady of Fatima. Also, I'm sure that the fact that the Pope had consecrated his life to Our Lady from the time he was 18 years old, I'm sure that had something to do with it too. But I also believe there was a deeper reason as to why his life was spared. It's divine mercy. And more specifically, it's what I call the deep secret of divine mercy.